In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my tracing and shading techniques if you want to create pictures like this. So let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm starting off with my burnt sienna, which is the color I like to use for all of my underpaintings. Burnt sienna is a color that dries very quickly because it's an earth tone, and with oil paints, earth tones are normally the colors that dry the fastest. And you don't want your underpainting to be wet for way too long, and you have to wait 2 days before you start painting. So I like to use burnt sienna. It also mixes well with the skin tones that I paint because you don't want to use black. It's a color that's going to stand out even when you layer on top of it. And I mix it with a little bit of Gamsol. What Gamsol is just paint thinner. I just dabble a little bit with my brush, put it onto my palette, and then I mix it together with my brush. So now it's time to get painting. I just create a rough outline of where his face curves are. You see, I start off with the right side of his face, just getting a nice outline. And you see that is not necessarily perfect. I'm going to make a lot of adjustments as I go on. And when you're painting, you don't want to really stress over super small details and just obsess over getting it perfect the first run, because none of my paintings are perfect at the first run. They don't look anything like the finished product, and that's the point. It's all about a journey of discovery. And when you continue along the painting, then that's when the vision becomes clearer and clearer. And I'm just creating rough outlines of where his features are. You see that I'm creating a slanted line for his eyes because his eyes are not necessarily on a straight line. It's sort of slanted because of the angle of his face. And I'm creating some lines just to really match where the nose is, get the nose structure. And I'm gonna move along to the lips after a little bit. And I just created a line just really curving around his hat to match where that is, because once I start getting the features where they are, then the proportions sort of find themselves and I just adjust from then on. So you don't want to be perfect on the first one. You're gonna figure it out as you go along, and once you create some parts of the painting, then other ones will start to fall in. And that's something that I had to figure out. I had to break out of that habit of trying to be a perfectionist at the first run. That just made the process so much harder, and I had to really use a lot of my energy with just tracing, getting the first run. And before I even started going in with the paint, then I was already exhausted because I put so much energy just trying to get this first layer as good as it can be. But then what that actually did is it made the end product not even look that good. You might think that making the first layer absolutely perfect, making it Leonardo da Vinci level, then you will have an end product that looks the same. But it actually turned out worse when I put too much energy onto the first level instead of fine tuning and refining and letting myself mess up at the start and just really enjoying the process. So yeah, and over here I just drew the lips, and I'm creating a fast forward of this part because it's sort of a um long area that it takes for me to really get all of the proportions, get all of the features in. But I wanted to say that as an artist, you really don't want to have an ego. And this is something that I really, really struggled with. This was about 1 year ago when I first joined my college art class because it was a painting one class. And what was going on in my head is that I was thinking that, oh, I've already been painting for years. I've already been through all of these things. I already learned so much. Like, why would I bring myself down to a level one class? And in my head, that was something that I thought that I have passed and that I couldn't really get that much value from. But that painting one class, when I was in it, I already came in with an ego. I had this thought in my head that I was like this big chested guy. My head was all puffed up. I was like the top of the room. And I was like, oh, these people haven't even learned yet. Like, I've been through so much. I've already learned all of these things. But what that did, it really just blocked me from learning so much and really developing myself as an artist and as a person in general. Because when you have such an inflated ego, when you think that you're too good for something, then you sort of block yourself from really leveling up past the level that you are now. And you really just block yourself from so many blessings in your life when you just have this head that is above the clouds. When you bring yourself down to reality and you really realize that we are all at the same level, we're all living the same experience, nobody is better than the other, we're all just humans at the end of the day, then that's when you really open yourself up to so much new doors, open yourself up to so much new opportunities to really just learn about yourself and really develop. So, as an artist, this is a really big thing because lots of artists sort of suffer with this sort of egotism. And when you break out of this habit, then you just you just set yourself off on a way better path. Because in that class for like 2 months straight, not even 2 months, it was like few weeks. I'm not even gonna stretch it out for that long. Few weeks, I was thinking that I was top of the class, but then first lesson that she taught us, it was something completely new. It was a technique that I haven't learned ever in my life. And learning this technique actually showed me that I have so much more to learn. Even in a painting one class, even though I've been painting for years and I'm self-taught, I have so much more to learn than just what I already know. She taught me this technique of underpainting, creating it without trying to be as perfect as you can, and creating it with just a rough outline, being loose, and then you layer on top of that. That is what I learned from that class. And I've been using this, and then ever since then, my paintings have just been flowing through super quick. I've been creating paintings like twice as fast as I did before. Before, a painting would take me hours and hours to finish, but now I'm finishing paintings within like 1 hour, 2 hours maximum, and they're way better quality than they were before. So it was just practice, putting it in over and over again, applying the things that I learned. And by the end of that class, I just realized that I have developed so much over these past few months and that was just from me opening up to being a student. You have to open yourself up to being a student because no matter how much you know, no matter how big you think you are, there's always room that you can learn, and you can always find new ways to develop yourself and bring yourself up to a brand new level. All right, so if you're an artist, even if you're not just an artist, if you're in a certain area of your life that you feel like, oh, you're the biggest, you're the best, you're the greatest, just getting rid of an ego and thinking that you can't develop, that is when you open yourself up to so much new opportunities. All right, now back to the painting. You see that I'm starting to go in with some burnt umber. This is for my darkest areas, just matching where the shadows are. And after this layer, I'm just gonna go in with a little bit darker tones, just really getting where the blacks of the shadows are. And this is just to get a rough outline of where all the colors go, where all the highlights are, where the shadows are. And this is a phase that I call blocking out. You're just blocking out where the colors go. And this is just filling out that underpainting that you made, because you want to layer on top of each painting. Painting is not pieces right next to each other. It's layers that stack on top of each other. And this layer is something that we're going to stack on top of. So we're just putting it here so that we have a better image to look at, and it's easier on the eye, and we can really process how things go and like get a like specific placement of where things are supposed to be. All right, so I'm just doing that one now, and from painting two, I've really just restored my love for it, because I had a story of me just being an on and off painter for like a large portion of my life. But then once I actually started getting back into painting, I just developed this deep love with just creation and creating things, because it's what makes me feel good on the inside. It makes me feel powerful whenever I'm able to see something and then bring it into my reality. That's the reason why I even paint in the first place, because it's just a beautiful concept, and just having this creative energy inside of you as a human and really just putting it out into the world and pushing a message with it is just the most beautiful thing that I can ever imagine. And art is supposed to just speak to people. It's something that spreads a voice, because you heard the saying that a picture can hold a million words. You can talk to somebody, but if you show them an image, you show them a painting, a piece of art, it's going to speak to not only their mind, but it's going to speak to their soul as well, because art is beauty. And when you share that beauty with the world, share a positive message with the world, then you are contributing to society, you are creating a better place for everybody. And that is just a message that I want to spread to the entire world. Don't be afraid to release your creative energy. Share it with the world, share your voice, because art is a voice that you can really push to the world, and you can inspire tons of people with what you create. So always look forward, look for a place that you can really just share your voice, share your vision, and be ambitious, not be afraid to just stand out from the crowd, because you can't seclude yourself to the crowd all the time. You have to separate yourself. You have to find your own uniqueness, find your own style that people can really love to, that people can really find inspiration from, and people can just enjoy your presence. Because people who have this creative energy and they share it with everybody, those are the people who will attract beauty into their life. And this is connected to finding your inner child. Whenever I create art, I sort of release that inner child in me that loves to create, because I've been painting for many years now, and I started painting in, like, not necessarily painting, but just creating art in elementary school. But then I took a huge break when I was in middle school. And then it was my sophomore year of high school. My friend bought me a sketchbook because I briefly told them that I was into art and I like to paint. So for my birthday, they got me a sketchbook. And then I just started creating sketches again, just like little sketches of figures. I started creating sketches of cartoons, and I really found my flow state again. And I'll tap into flow state later. But I found my flow state again. And every single picture that I made, I just wanted to create it better and better and better, because I really found a path that I can really put all my energy into and get something out of it. That is something that I really like to do. I like to put all my energy into something and then get a positive outcome out of it. So, such as working out, I like to run, I like to create things, I like to read, I like to learn. That's putting my energy into things and then getting something, something tangible, and like something that I can really look at and reflect on what I went through and how I developed when I was pursuing that thing that I wanted to get. And now, fast forward a few months later, after I started getting consistent with my art again, I joined the art class my junior year of high school. And in that class, I actually started testing out different materials. I started using colored pencils, I started using oil pastels, I started using oil paints, I started using charcoal, all the above. And I was just finding my groove, and I was finding a rhythm that I really would want to immerse myself in. And I really liked to develop myself in, and that was oil paints and also colored pencils. I really liked using colored pencils. My whole AP portfolio was made with colored pencils, but my AP portfolio was all the way in my senior year of high school. So my junior year, I was being consistent, and my art teacher was a huge motivation for me. She saw that I really had a love for the thing that I did, and she told me to keep on going. She said that I want to see you join another art class next year. I want to see you in the next semester, and you really should continue with this thing that you have. So I was a little bit hesitant at first, because this was like something that I didn't really know what I can get out of. And I didn't really know if I would like to commit to a path like this. But with her motivation and like her constant words of positivity and her constantly pushing me towards this, then I finally said, yeah, that I'll give it a try. I'll give it a shot and I'll put my all into it. So my senior year comes around, all right, and I start my AP portfolio. A few projects in, she says that there's an art show coming up and that she wanted me to apply to it. And you can tell that this was a huge moment for me because I was like, whoa, an art show? Like, I haven't even been painting for like 3, 4 years and I'm already about to go into an art show. And I just sort of had like self limiting beliefs because I thought that art shows were only for people who were like absolute professionals and people who were really like mastering the craft. And in my head, I didn't even think that I was at that level yet. Like, I was like, man, I have some more development to do. But I give it a shot. I applied to it. I submitted one picture that I made. It's a photo of a girl. I made it with colored pencils and she has hands surrounding her. And the hands are just, they're gray, they're sort of lifeless, but then the girl, she has life. And I named it Fear because it's supposed to represent how fear is only an image in our heads and how fear is not really something that's real. It's just something that our mind puts on us because something that we're afraid of is not like universally like feared. It's something that we put into our heads. And really, the thing that separates fear and bravery is how we perceive the danger and how we perceive the things in our head. So breaking away from that fear and just putting ourselves in a mindset of strength and of dominance and of confidence, then that is all a result of changing how your mindset sees the thing. So I wanted to really show that we can take control of our fears, and that is all in our head. And I submitted that into the art show. A few weeks passed by. I hear back from my art teacher. She says, Jordan, you got in. And I was like, oh my goodness, this was amazing. And I was like, how in the world did I get into an art show in my senior year and I only been painting for like this long? And I just felt so good. It was like a mix of so many emotions because I felt like I felt like my work was being appreciated and it was really being spread to a larger audience. And this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to spread my voice to a larger audience because my audience at the beginning wasn't really that large, but putting myself in an environment like this was a huge step and it really just like strengthened my commitment to what I did. And I saw that this thing is really possible. So I went to the art show and it was just a great time. Everybody over there had the same sort of mindset. Everybody just wanted to get even better at what they did. They were super creative, they were super outgoing, just super good vibes all around. And I liked being over there. And surprisingly, after that art show, my art just in surprisingly got super good all of a sudden. I think it was something about the environment and just putting myself around those people and seeing what was possible. It just opened my mind and just broke myself from those limiting beliefs that I had in my head. And I just accelerated twice as fast from there. But finding my flow state again was something that it took some time for me to really find it because it's sort of like a key and there's a lock. And when you find that one pattern that really gets you through the lock and then you finally unlock it, then you're able to unlock it over and over and over again. And for me, that was painting, finding my creative expression and releasing my creative energy. That is what got me into the flow state. And whenever I'm in the flow state, time just flies by like crazy. I could be sitting in that chair for 5 hours and it only feels like 30 minutes has passed. And the flow state is just such a beautiful place to be in because you just feel so separated from the outside world and you just feel so connected to your inner world and you're just zoned in on one thing. And that is something that is just so beautiful to me. Finding that flow state and finding what really makes you happy finding what develops you and what makes you a better person while also spreading a positive message to the world. Now here I'm mixing some of my lighter colors, so I'm using the burnt umber and mixing it with a little bit of the white to get those light reflection. And here is where the magic starts coming in. You're gonna see a real transformation once you start adding in these lighter parts because you already got the dark areas done. Now you're adding the contrasting whites. And I'm starting off with the lip because at the top of his lip he has a little bit of a light reflection, and it's gonna start having some more form because these whites, they really add texture, they add more dimension and more shape to the photos. And I'm gonna start touching up some other areas you'll see, like such as the nose, the forehead, and where other light is reflecting on his face. So this means hitting areas such as the chin, the upper eyelid, the lower eyelid, and in the photo there is some light reflection right like at the bottom of the shadow of where his hat is covering. I just added those areas because there's some holes in the hat and I wanted the light to be peeking through it to give it a nice detail. And I'm just mixing some red with my browns to get the lower lip color because the lower lip is not necessarily pink, it's sort of like a reddish brown, light reddish brown, and I'm already using the colors that I have on my palette so I don't waste some more color. And when you're painting, you want to keep your colors on your palette. You don't want to have to always use fresh paint out of the tube because you can really make your paints last way longer by just using what you already have on your palette. All right, so I'm just adding out some more areas where the light is reflecting on his face, the forehead, the side of his face, just these smaller details. And when you add these details, then everything starts coming together more. When you only have the shadows, then it sort of looks flat, but the whites really add the magic to the photo and it gives it that nice realistic look. And over here, I'm just adding in some of my darkest darks now with the black, and I saved this one for last. I wanted to really get all of my areas filled out before I go in with the darkest darks. And the darkest darks are in the areas such as like where his hat is lying on his head. And I'm going to move on to the cheekbone in a little bit. And also in the ears, there's like the darkest areas underneath his lip as well. You don't really need too much black because we already made a dark layer with the burnt umber, but this is just for more depth and more shadow in the final photo. And when I'm laying down my blacks, I'm not blending them in right away because I want to have a clean brush before I start blending things so it doesn't really get that messy, because black is a easy color to get messy with and you kind of mess up your photo if you're not very careful with it. So I'm just laying it down where it goes, such as like the cheekbone and like right underneath his chin. And I clean off my brush, and over here I'm starting to blend it, create a seamless transition between the darks and the lights. And just using a circular motion, you can use a circular motion or you can use a wiping motion to get that nice blend. But you want to make sure that your brush is clean. Clean it off after every mix so that you don't get blacks where they don't go, because it's sort of hard to clean up after you lay it down. Like if I put the black in the lighter area, like where his eyes are, then that'll be a very hard thing for me to clean up. Even if you use your paper towel to try to clean it up, it's still gonna show up. So just got to be very careful with how you use it and blend it very well. Make sure that there's no rough edges. Make sure that the skin texture looks very smooth and that is not too blocky. Don't miss any areas. And I'm just using some of that black from the other areas to put it underneath the eye, really get the bone structure right. You see on top of the eye. And I'm just applying it to all the other areas, such as like his mustache. I'm just using it from the forehead, grabbing the black from there, putting it underneath his nose for his mustache. And after this phase, I feel like we're in a pretty good place right now. I don't know if you guys think the same, but I feel like it's starting to look a little bit like somebody. I'm going over with my clean brush, making sure that I don't have any more paint on it, to make sure that all my edges are clean and that I'm not missing out on any areas, because you don't want areas to really stand out that you missed. You want everything to be pristine and perfect. Now it's time to add in the ear because I missed out on the ear, and I didn't forget about the ear. I just wanted to save this area for last because I wanted to make sure that everything else was good before I start focusing on some of the smaller details. The ear is a very simple area. You just got to get some few curves, get a few shadows and a few highlights in. And right now we're almost at the finish line. I'm just adding in some of the smaller details. You see the eyes, I'm creating a nice trace of where the pupils belong. And everything starts coming together once you start putting the eyes. You see the face starting to really develop itself, starting to become more whole instead of just parts next to each other. And if you're wondering what color I'm using for the trace of the pupils, I'm using the burnt umber that I used before. And I'm just recycling the colors that are already on my palette. I don't want to squeeze out some new paint. And I'm creating a nice trace of where his eyelashes are, just adding in some tiny details with my fine brush. And with the eyes, you don't want to use just plain white. If you look at anybody's eyes, nobody's eyes are just a pure titanium white. It's a mix of different colors. Some people's eyes, such as this one, are a little bit more yellowish. Some people have they have like a whitish eye, but it's still like gray. It's not just pure white. And that's because of the shadow that our eyelids have on our eye. You want to really put that onto your paintings to get a nice realistic look to it, because if you just use plain white straight out the tube for the whole eye, then it'll look more cartoonish, and we're not really trying to create cartoonish eyes. We're trying to create a more realistic looking eye. Alright, on my palette now, I'm using some yellow ochre with my titanium white. And at first, the yellow comes out a little bit too yellowish that I want. So I'm just using a little bit of the titanium white to really get a nice cream color of the eye, because the eye is more of like a cream. It's not too yellowish, it's not too white. It's a nice even brown. So I finally get that color. I dropped my paintbrush and a little bit of paint over here, so I just have to wipe it off. Sometimes that happens, it gets a little bit annoying, but you're just gonna clean it up after that. You don't want to get too much paint on your hands. But I finally got a nice color for the eyes, and I'm applying it over to where the whites of the eyes are, and everything starts coming together after this point, because the eyes are really just the final area that we have to touch up. And after this, we're pretty much done. So as I'm wrapping up this painting, just finding areas that I can really improve on, find if there's anything missing out. And yeah, we're pretty much smooth sailing from this point. Later on, I'm going to add some more details such as the colors in his hat, but for this video, I really just want to focus on getting the skin tones right and getting the shadows in the right place. So if you're struggling with getting your shading and your shadows right, rewind on this video, just match the techniques that I use. All right, and you should be in a better place. And with consistent practice and consistent repetition, you will get better, because this is not a result of just luck or just one round of me trying and then getting it right. It never ends up right the first time. It's constant repetition, finding out what works, finding out what doesn't work, getting rid of what doesn't work, and reusing the things that do work. So I found that this technique works out really well for me, and I'm able to produce high quality works in a short amount of time, and it's not super draining on me, because sometimes painting can be super draining when you put too much energy in areas that don't really need it. When you're able to focus your energy into one specific area and really improve on that area, then that's when you'll see the most development, you'll see the most growth, and you'll see the fastest type of growth. And now that I'm done with the whites of the eyes, I'm going in with my pure black and I'm darkening out those areas. You'll see that now the eye has a little bit more of a realistic look to it. Before it was kind of shallow because it didn't really have that much depth. But with this dark area, I'm also sharpening up the eyelids, making sure that the eye shape is really sharp, and just adding those final details. You want to use the paint that you already put on the pupil and you drag that along, because if you use fresh paint straight out the tube and you use fresh black paint, you're gonna have some smears. You don't want to use a large amount when you're sharpening up areas. You can just bring it from one area that you used it already, and you don't have to waste even more paint. So over here, adding out a little bit more white, just a little bit more shine on the eyelid, because you see that there's a little bit of sunlight that's shining on this eyelid, and this just gives it a more three-dimensional look. As I wrap up this portrait, I want to thank you all for watching, and I also want to invite you to join my emailing list in the description. You get a free 7-step guide on painting portraits that you can follow every single time that you want to paint. So you just type in your email over there. It'll be the first link in the description. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.